Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lido Loca Podcast, episode 21. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Tony, and I will be guiding you today. A special episode, an interview episode, continuing on with reaching out to cruisers around the world. Today, I have the privilege to talking to Ian and Sandra, the UberCruisers. They're based out of Sydney, Australia, and this conversation took place a few weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to ask them what was going on in Australia when it comes to the virus and what's going on when it comes to cruising. So sit back, buckle up. Here's my conversation with the UberCruisers. Ian, so good to actually hear your voice, to see your face. Good to connect with you. Welcome to the conversation.
Thanks, Tony. It's good to be here. Love to Jenny, and it's interesting times ahead.
Interesting times indeed. Let's start there. I mean, that's the biggest elephant in the room. I'm sure you've seen media reports of how challenged we are a little bit here in the States with the current crisis. What's life like in Australia? I know you guys have had a different approach there, and things may be getting better from a pandemic perspective. How's it looking there?
Yeah, so we're in the state of New South Wales. So all the states basically look after all the health needs of their people, and yeah, I mean, we've done a great job. Some of the states have closed their borders. Just recently, unfortunately, the state of Victoria has shut their borders again. They look like they have a bit of a second wave going through. The numbers are nothing like what you have in the States, but certainly everybody is taking major precautions with this pandemic, and unfortunately a lot of the states are now opening up their borders, but they're not allowing Victorians to enter. They just don't want to take the risk.
How does that work? So here in the U.S., we can go state to state pretty easily. There's not really much way to restrict it. So many roads like in and out of a particular state. When you go state to state there, do you have to do some sort of checkpoint almost as if you've gone to another country, or how would they stop?
Yeah, no. Normally the borders are just open. They're just normal roads. What they've done between New South Wales and Queensland, for instance, is they shut all the minor roads, and they've forced all the traffic, for instance, onto the major roads. And then they've got the police there monitoring people. You had to apply for a online pass. And we had a bit of a funny story the other week. My family live in New South Wales, but they live only 20 kilometres south of the border. Now, we often fly up there, but the airport is actually in Queensland, and the border literally goes halfway through the airport. So when we had all the correct documentation, but when we got there, the police weren't going to let us through because I didn't have a reasonable excuse to visit my father, who's nearly 91 years old now. Luckily, my brother was out the front waiting to pick us up, and of course he had New South Wales license plates. He had passes for him and my father, and that was good enough for the police. So they let us through in the end.
Wow. Hello. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much.
This is Sandra, the second half of the UberCruisers.
It's so good to have you here. How are you? You keeping Ian in line down there?
Always.
Excellent. I know the feeling. If I didn't have Jenny to keep me in line, I would be a mess.
Well, she's a New Yorker, isn't she? So they breed them pretty tough up.
She has no trouble at all keeping me in line. It's interesting, the restrictions between the states. What was Australia's response to the initial pandemic? Was it a quick response? Did things close down right away? How did it tackle the virus?
Well, yes, they did. They basically shut it down pretty quickly. the federal government did a great job, and even the opposition politicians thought that the government did a good job as well. Although now they're sort of changing their minds a little bit. But look, it's typical politicians. But yeah, they basically shut down all air travel. We shut down the borders. We were on a cruise at the time on the Carnival Splendor when they ordered all cruise ships back to port. There's been some hiccups, obviously, on the way. We've had some outbreaks in nursing homes. Of course, we had the infamous Ruby Princess. I won't call it a debacle because I don't think it was a debacle. It was just a bit of a blip. But unfortunately, the Ruby Princess has been our biggest outbreak with over 600 people and plus 22 deaths, I think, at the last count, which is a shame. But yeah, they've done lots of things, and our daughters and my wife and both our daughters are nurses. Our elder daughter has been working in the clinics, what they call the COVID clinics, where they come in and test people and that sort of thing. So.
Well, that's good. Everybody's doing well. Thanks all you guys, Sandra and your daughters, for doing that. That's hard work, I can imagine. I couldn't imagine the challenges that go along with that. So thank you guys. So you mentioned the Ruby Princess. Does that continue to kind of cast a bad light on cruising? What's the general feeling about cruising among Australians? There's an interesting sentiment across parts of the world where I'm not really sure the people that are upset with cruising are necessarily cruisers, but of course, there's been enough negative press that could really skew anything. What's the feeling toward cruising in Australia?
Yeah, well, cruising before the pandemic was a very popular holiday choice. We've got a lot of cruise lines that operate out of Australia, and indeed, they're expanding their network of cruise ports. Embarkation cruise ports, and but since the Ruby Princess issue, there's been a lot of negative press. At the moment, it's died down because with the Victorians going through a second wave, it's sort of all of a sudden it's given the media something else to report on. Yes, but
I think since the Barman Princess, which was February, was it?
Yeah.
A lot of Australians were saying don't cruise, and in fact when we got on the cruise ship at the beginning of March, everybody couldn't believe that we were actually going. But luckily our cruise didn't have any cases of COVID-19, and
and we came into port only 2 days earlier than the Ruby Princess, so I guess we were lucky. We also had a cyclone that we had to deal with.
Cyclone. That's no fun. I kind of went through that in Japan with the typhoon, so very similar.
It's funny how in different parts of the world we all call hurricanes or cyclones or typhoon a different word. So we call them cyclones. Asia calls them typhoons. North America, Europe calls them hurricanes. So.
It is funny, like I'd never experienced that, and when we were in Asia and they were calling it a typhoon, I thought, okay, well, they know what this is, they can handle this. And then when somebody finally explained to me, well, that's the same thing as a hurricane, I felt a lot more serious about it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this does seem worse now. But they do anything different on your cruise? Once the outbreak continued pretty much early in March, did they do self-service no self-service buffets, or did they change anything once they decided to bring your cruise back?
Yeah, they basically from the beginning, I think they did. They took away the self-service, and they just served us at the buffets.
We'd never been on Carnival before, so we didn't know how it actually worked, but there certainly were people with hand disinfectant before all of the eating areas.
Yes, they did encourage you to wash and use the disinfectant.
Did you guys get any compensation for your 2 days missed? Did credit you back?
Well, yeah, we almost made a profit on that cruise, actually, with the amount of compensation that we got.
And your gambling wins.
Oh, yes, I saw. Yes. That won't tell them about that. Jenny will get jealous.
Sure, for sure.
But yes, I think in total we got $700 credit. 300 was non-refundable, and 400 was refundable. So, in fact, just the other day, we got a check. We got a check from Carnival for the balance of the account. So that was good. Yeah.
And I understand Carnival has been very well accommodating to you, as well, I don't guess anybody knows but me, that you guys were going to travel and be with us on one of our group cruises, but because of the state of travel, you can't come to the States now, and Carnival was very accommodating, allowing you to get your money back and really got your refund quick, I think, from what I understand.
Yeah, we got the refund in about a week, so that's pretty quick for that sort of thing. I mean, it was only $250 US, so it wasn't a large amount of money, but Jenny did a great job arranging that for us.
Yeah. So many people have had long waits. When she told me that, I was like, that's excellent. I know you guys have visited the States before. Have you cruised in the US before?
Yes, we've cruised from Fort Lauderdale back in 2011, I think it was, on the Sea Princess, and it was a Panama cruise. So it went Fort Lauderdale through to San Francisco.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that was a good cruise, very enjoyable.
Up to San Francisco.
Yeah, did I say that? Yeah, San Francisco. So.
The major differences between U.S. cruising and Australia cruising, anything stick out?
Not really. No, just a lot of Americans on American cruises, a lot of Australians on Australian cruises. We actually prefer to take overseas cruises rather than cruise from Australia. Although having said that, predominantly I was looking at our statistics last night, and we've done, in total, we've done 19 cruises, and 8 of them have been from Australia. So, and the balance have been overseas cruises.
What are some of the destinations for Australian cruises? What are all these locations will sound exotic to folks here in North America. What's a typical Australian cruise?
Well, a typical Australian cruise will either be to New Zealand or to the South Pacific. So, the South Pacific will include Fiji, New Caledonia, Vanuatu, what other places?
Cook Islands.
The Cook Islands, Tahitian Islands, and then there's a popular cruise that goes circumnavigate Australia. It's like a 17 or 18-day cruise.
Usually across the top.
Yeah, they normally end up going overseas to Indonesia or something like that. But certainly New Zealand and South Pacific are the two popular cruises, yeah.
Or they're just entirely within Australia and cruise down to Tasmania, say, from Sydney.
Yeah, they're normally like shorter cruises, 4-night cruises. Yeah.
So for someone like myself who's never been to Australia, a couple of questions. What city would you recommend visiting in Australia first? And if you were going to cruise, what port of call from Australia would be the best for somebody who's never made any of those journeys?
Well, certainly Sydney is the primary port. We have 2 cruise terminals in Sydney. We have Circular Quay, which is right in the middle of the city, and then we have what they call White Bay Cruise Terminal, which is sort of in an industrial sort of part of the harbour. But Sydney Harbour is one of the most beautiful harbours in the world. So you've got the Harbour Bridge, you've got the Opera House, and it's just a magnificent sail out when you sail out of the Sydney Harbour, and but certainly Brisbane's very popular these days. Brisbane have just about to open their new cruise port, which will accommodate the big Royal Caribbean cruises like the class. Are they the big ones, the Oasis class or the Quantum class or whatever they're called? Yeah.
Oasis is big as
So Royal Caribbean, for instance, have got 3 cruise ships starting in Australia next year, and that's the Ovation, the Quantum, and the Radiance. Yeah.
Very nice.
So
those are the main 2 harbours you cruise out of, Brisbane and Sydney.
Yeah, Brisbane and Sydney.
The others are all just ports of call.
Well, no, I mean, Adelaide is starting. Adelaide's just started up, and so is Melbourne. Perth, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, that's a lie. No, they do cruise out of Perth.
Yes.
Yeah, because my brother cruised out of Perth once. So, but certainly Sydney and Brisbane are the 2 big ones.
What's the best port of call in the South Pacific? If you could only go to one.
Oh, if you could only go to one, I'd have to say Vanuatu.
Yes.
Vanuatu.
Yeah. Vanuatu, because all of these South Pacific islands are more than just one island. You know, they're multiple islands.
And a lot of them are quite small.
Yeah. So our favourite, 2 favourites really are Champagne Bay and Mystery Island. They're both in Vanuatu.
Yeah.
And they're just beautiful. Mystery Island, for instance, doesn't have any inhabitants, so you tender to the boat, and then locals come over and you know they serve you and
set up
food and shops and that sort of thing.
Swimming and snorkeling.
Yeah, and the snorkeling is fantastic.
Wow. Sounds really, really nice. I'll put you on the spot here. What is your favorite cruise line?
Oh, well, no, you don't put us on the spot there. It's Princess Cruises.
Princess Cruises. That's the majority.
Yeah. We've been on 15 Princess Cruises, and we're elite members. I don't like using that word. It's a bit elitist. But anyway. But yeah, we just became elite, actually, so we haven't been elite for that long. And it's certainly, we just like the, not really into the roller coasters and the go-karts and all that sort of stuff. Although, having said that, we do love going to theme parks and that sort of thing, but more on land than at sea.
So Sandra and Ian, the UberCruisers, tell me a little bit about what you guys like to film when you go on vacation. What can people expect when they go and visit your YouTube channel?
Well, basically, most of it is snorkeling and that sort of stuff. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see lots of underwater stuff. I used to be a scuba diver many years ago, but Sandra won't let me take it up again.
Snorkeling.
Yeah, snorkeling's nice and cheap. And, so, I mean, when we travel a mixture of cruising and land content. So, for instance, when we cruised to Japan the first time, we spent 2 weeks in Japan afterwards, so travelling around. So we take advantage of the fact that, you know, that we're in a place and we want to, you know, visit the areas around where the cruise is. It's
having a day visit to a city is good, but you get a feel of the place, and if you want to go back later, it gives you can take the opportunity later. So,
going on a cruise is like tapas. You try a little bit, and if you like it, you go back for more. So,
I think that's a great analogy. That's definitely the way that I felt when I went to Asia. I had just a little bit, and I really wanted more. Like, you know, Tokyo, I definitely could go back and spend some more time there. I was The interesting thing for me about the Asian trip is I was almost disappointed that it was just a cruise. I didn't know that's the way I was going to feel, but there was a couple times, couple locations where I was discouraged that I was only there for a few hours. I was like, oh, I made this journey all the way across the world. I wish I could stay here longer. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking some time checking in with Australia. It's such a pleasure to talk to both of you. And I know we've known each other virtually for a long time, and it's really fun for me to actually get to talk to you guys. So I appreciate you taking the time and letting us check in on what's going on in Sydney. Lots of good information. And hopefully someday Jenny and I will get over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And fingers crossed we'll make it to the States next year, and we'll certainly try and catch up with you guys then.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
So great to talk to Ian and Sandra over there in Sydney, Australia. Hope to get to meet them in real life someday. Are you enjoying the podcast? Please do us a favor, leave a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast app, and also hit that like button if you're watching this video on YouTube. Yes, there is a video presentation of this podcast. It is the Lido Loca Cruise Podcast channel on YouTube. Links are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Hope you guys are having a great week. This is Tony with Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.